Greetings, my name is Bethany Mazzaro, and I'm going to present to you social media and ethics in the workplace. First, I'd like to start by providing you with a little bit of background information, and I pull this information from Rudy Volti, who authored the book Society and Technological Change. First, it talks about where digital networking came from, and the invention of it was intended for the purposes of the military. After the military's use and probably their technological advance created opportunity for businesses in the 70s to take over and start utilizing the digital networking opportunities as well for business, and that became known as email. Of course, a lot of us didn't hear much about it in the 70s. A little bit more with the technological advances in the 1980s came through mostly word processors, but some of the higher tech organizations and industries were utilizing the services of computer networks, and the creation of click-on icons became popular during that time. It didn't become commercialized until the 1990s. During the 1990s, because the use was so far and wide and advanced throughout the United States and probably within Europe, and I'm just guessing on that, the development of the Hypertext Trans Protocol, which is HTTP, became a new technological advance for the use of searching on digital networks, which we now know as the World Wide Web, which brings us into the 2000s. In the 2000s, the advancement in technological acquirements of more social developments had happened, and with that brought in Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat, and so on and so forth. And along with that are smartphones, which a lot of us now have, and you can see on the background of my slide, where we're able to communicate anywhere in the world right in our handheld device, which is not just our phone, but a small mini computer right in our hand. Here's an animated but true story about somebody who posted about their workplace on social media and what happened as a result of that. So yeah, the video was definitely kind of funny, although, you know, there's a moral to the story, and the moral is think before you act. There is a spectrum, and that scale is wide and far and few in between. And we all are placed somewhere on the spectrum of where our ethics lie, what are our morals and our values. So let's get into ethics. What is ethics? Well, ethics is how we live our life. It's who we are as a human being. It's based on our character. It's based on our morals and values of who we want to be and who we put ourselves out in the world to be. With our morals and values in our ethics, we make choices and we make decisions, and those choices and decisions are going to enable us to fit on that spectrum of how we perceive ourselves or how others perceive us, and where we're going in our lives based on those choices and decisions. You know, what is right for one person may not be right for another, and that is all based on our beliefs. But within that spectrum, there is definitely responsibilities as an employee or as an employer. And knowing what those responsibilities are, you'll just have to think about what am I doing, and how's this going to affect me, and how's this going to affect other people? And then that gets into accountabilities. What are my accountabilities if I do this? Even if this is on my own time in my own home, social media reaches no boundaries. It's boundaryless. It can go viral, as we've heard, and go everywhere and anywhere, and anybody can see it. If the way you would like to express and exploit yourself as a human being is appropriate when you press that button to send, then be responsible when making that decision, and also know that you're going to be held accountable, because there are rules and regulations and laws out there that protect you, but also protect others as well. So what are your work ethics? How do you express yourself at work, amongst your peers, amongst coworkers, amongst your employer or other employees? What are the choices that you make when you're at work with your social media? And what are the choices you make when you are outside of work with social media? It's all the same. All right, so let's dig in a little deeper about the employer and employee relations. A lot has changed over the years, and who we are as people changes over the years too. Who are you? Now, who you were at 20 may be different than who you are at 30 and 40 and 50. So let's take out all your personal emotions about who you are and look at yourself from a perspective of how you view yourself in the workplace, to your employer or to employees. How do you value your employer or your employees? How do you feel that they value you? Think about all the characteristics of a person that you see come out in the way people respond to you in the workplace, as well as how you respond to them. And that'll give you a good idea of who you may be. And then again, where have we come from? That also develops who we are, who we were yesterday, and who we are today, and who we may become tomorrow. We're always a work in progress. And speaking of progress, over the last 50 years, there has been so many changes with ethical values of employers to employees, as well as employees to employers. 50 years ago, or maybe a little more, especially like during World War II, a lot of females went into the workforce and worked in non-traditional roles. Amongst the men coming back from war, a lot had changed. So today's ethical values of employers and employees, as well as employees to employers, has had to change. And that has changed who we have become as people through ethical trainings, ethical development, and ethical awareness. So that brings us into where we are going, and also a little bit of where we have come from. We've now established rules and regulations and laws that have developed better opportunities for employers as well as employees to protect us all against one another for taking a leave of absence, taking sick time, maternity time, having equal opportunity, workers' compensation, just to name a few. And these rules and regulations are something that we live by now, as opposed to 50 or more years ago. A commitment was settled upon a handshake, whereas today, the rules, regulations, and laws are written out and you need to read them and sign off. And this brings me into leadership, the leadership that is going to drive the train on applying and enforcing the opportunities for employers as well as employees to develop themselves. So a leadership with great experience is going to provide you with those opportunities to progress. They're going to provide you with training and ongoing training throughout employment and throughout your career, as well as leadership will need to further their training, which develops their experience and makes them good leaders. Also part of training is the development. Once we've had training, we need to develop ourselves as individuals, as well as employers or employees, so that we can all work within the confines of an organization and know the rules, know the regulations, and know the laws, because we've been trained in them. And we're developing ourselves to follow the rules, the regulations, and laws. And then we continue on. Now this brings us into talking a little bit more about leadership and authentic organizational social responsibility. There are corporate responsibility programs that are in effect today, and especially with larger organizations and corporations, there's an ongoing training and development that's always happening within these organizations, because people come and go, employees come and go, employers come and go, but training and development of the human being within an organization needs to be ongoing. So when we think about that, the training and development, we're also thinking about, well, who is that face of the organization? Well, it's you. No matter what position you are the face of that organization. So do you think you're the face of the organization in and out of work? Well, if you say, no, I'm not, what I do in my own time is my own business, well, you're absolutely right. But that also affects the organization as to where you work, because people are humans and human beings judge. So be careful about what you do and the choices and decisions that you make and how you apply those to social media. Because if you're a counselor, such as an LCSW, you probably don't want to put on social media that you're drinking and getting drunk and doing jelly shots off your belly button in a bar. Probably wouldn't be conducive for others to see you in that kind of a situation, and then they're sending their children to you for addiction. So think about what you're doing. Decisions and choices, they're all yours. They're your responsibility. So be prepared for the accountability. That brings me into being true to yourself and being authentic. If that's who you are and you like to have jelly shots off your belly button and you want to put it on social media, well, maybe being an LCSW is not a good idea for you working with those of addictive diseases. It's not going to mix, and you have to be true to yourself to know that making a different choice may be a better opportunity for you. So leadership roles is another part of providing you with an opportunity. Regardless of who you are a leader in some capacity and to somebody. So if you want to set the stage and you want those around you or those that you do lead, such as a parent and a child, for an example, you need to lead by example. You can't tell your child not to smoke while you're smoking a cigarette. And you can't tell your child, I don't want you drinking, but it's okay for me. So you really need to lead by example to the best of your ability. And just remember, Moderation for everything is a good way to lead by example. And be authentic in that leadership. Be authentic in that role as a leader. Be prepared to be who you are. Also know that if you're going to be truly authentic to who you are, with the jelly shots on the belly button, then be prepared for the outcomes and the accountabilities of such, based on what you do for work, what your career is, who you are, how you present yourself in society, and so on. And putting it on social media, can't play two sides of the sword, because it is a double-edged sword and you have to be very careful. So here is a really great example of a diverse group of people in the workplace, probably not making the best choices. But here's a great example of how I can present to you what we just talked about. Now that we've seen that video, I'm sure it brings some information into light. We also have to think about, well, geez, they were employees in a workplace, and hey, what if there's some organizational surveillance going on in there? So is what they're doing, is it right or is it wrong? Even if it's their break or their time, whose equipment is it? Do they own the equipment? Are they in a place of business? Who's around that can see them? Who can hear them? Is that a good example to set? So let's talk about surveillance. Again, we're talking about spectrums. There's some extremes on the spectrum. The good, the bad, and the ugly. Well, there's a lot of things that we can do with surveillance. And we can set algorithms with surveillance. And that can create some wonderful opportunities for marketing or trends and the development of research and such, which is great in a lot of businesses. It also can be great as far as keystroking is concerned if somebody needs to be monitored based on the speculation that they might be going to some unlawful websites. So keystroking would be really important to determine whether a person is doing the right thing, and whether that's on or off duty. Because there are some, there's some law violations out there, and they're going to be picked up through the keystroking and the algorithms. And that is the good is you're doing what you want. The bad is it may not be right. And the ugly is you might be looking at a big lawsuit. So be careful. Know, once again, that moderation of anything is a good thing, unless it's, of course, it's illegal. Make the right choices. Have some work ethics. Have some ethics with social media. Be responsible. And most of all, be accountable. So leadership monitoring within an organization, my opinion is that I think it is worthy. I think leadership monitoring is also an opportunity for the leadership through the IT department to follow algorithms for their employees, or keystroking, because they need your computer has to be scrubbed every once in a while and looked at to see if there are any law violations. It's not to say, aha, I see you shopping on Amazon, or I know you're on Facebook all the time. Because some jobs, it's going to be an opportunity for you to be on those different websites. But in some organizations, it's not conducive for you to be on those websites all the time. So the only time the monitoring can clearly be set with guidelines is to monitor, not to be looking at what you're looking at on the World Wide Web all day long, because then your leadership is probably not getting their work done either. All right, so here's a great video on an employer who monitored their employee and everything that happened. It's another funny video. Here we go. All right, so as we go forward in life, I want to take a look at, and I have a long dialogue from Rudy Volti in Society and Technological Change that I referenced, and it is quoted right out of the book, but it was so dead on that I wanted to requote it for you. And it talks about smartphones are of particular importance for the activity of social media. Their users spend more time on social media than those who confine their digital networking to desktop computers. In some ways, the dramatic increase in the number of social media sites and their members is merely the continuation of age-old social patterns. People have always sought to connect with one another. It is one of the defining characteristics of our species. But for most of human existence, the ability to interact with one another and to create, join, and participate in social networks did not go beyond face-to-face interactions. We expect more from technology and less from one another, and seem increasingly drawn to the technologies that provide the illusion companionship without the demands of relationship. Always on you devices provide three powerful fantasies: that we want to always be heard, that we can put our attention wherever we want it to be, and that we never have to be alone. So social medias and social networks can promote stability within a society by forging and strengthening linkages between individuals. But at the same time, however, they can be powerful tools for undermining an existing social order. Turning individual grievances into a mass movement requires communication links to create a sense of common purpose, to forge a group identity, to inform participants of intended actions, and to schedule these actions. And so there you have it. This gives you something to think about. Thank you.